Murphy, Schiller & Wilks is formed with a simple purpose in mind, serving as the one-stop shop for the legal needs of developers, lenders, and others in the commercial real estate industry. Based in Newark, the firm's attorneys represent clients in the most complex real estate transactions and land development proceedings, as well as property taxation, environmental and real estate litigation matters, and in the acquisition, sale, and leasing of all real estate asset types throughout the country. Their attorneys have broad private and public sector experience coming from top national law firms and high-level governmental positions. Through the development of individualized client-focused strategies, their team works tirelessly to create a blueprint for success and advance their clients' interests in every matter. To learn more, head to murphyllp.com or give them a call at 973-877-6984.
Driving on this road feels like forever.
All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Greetings from the Garden State. I'm your host, Mike Cam. We are here in Red Bank, New Jersey today with Ming Chen. Ming, welcome to the show.
What's up, my friend? How are you? Welcome.
Yes,
welcome.
You're right. I welcomed you, but I'm in your space now.
Yeah, but the warmest of welcomes here.
Yeah. No, this is so cool. And I joked earlier how it's like weird being in a studio, which it really is because everything I do is on the road.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like I'm always traveling to different places, and I travel down here, but this is cool. So can you tell us a little bit about what this space is and, what it's all about and what you guys do?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll give you the comic book origin story, shall we say?
100%.
Started podcasting in 2010.
Okay.
Encouraged highly
You're like an OG almost.
I would say that, except the guy who I guess mentored me or made me do it was truly OG, Kevin Smith.
Okay.
Who is... Yeah. When you mention Garden State, Kevin Smith is, immediately, it's like Bruce Springsteen,
right.
And Kevin Smith in my book.
Yeah.
Maybe you throw Bon Jovi in there, Blondie, there's a lot of people, but I think Kevin Smith, he started way back in 2007. And if you've ever seen Kevin speak, he's very vocal, outgoing, great storyteller.
Yeah.
But he also doesn't hold back, which means he curses, as we do here in Jersey.
Right.
He'll talk about him and his wife very, bluntly. And, he's very honest. He doesn't want anything holding him back.
Yeah.
And when he found podcasting, he was like, wait, there's a format where I can say whatever I want. I'm like, yeah. He's like, is there a time limit? It's like, no, man, you can go 4 hours, 4 minutes. Whatever you want. Yeah. And he's like, well, back up. I can say whatever I want, though. I can curse. I'm like,
as long as you want too. Yeah.
Yeah. And as long as you want. And if you ever seen Kevin speak, he doesn't shut up.
Yeah.
And which is very ironic because he plays a character called Silent Bob.
Right.
Which is crazy. But he took to this, this format was built for him. A guy who just, knowing that just doesn't hold back, has a million stories about Hollywood, growing up in Jersey, everything, and very opinionated. And so he started a podcast called SModCast back in 2007, and it took off immediately. His first episode's got 300,000 subscribers,
which back then is insane.
Yeah. Might as well have
even today million. That's insane. But even back then with less discoverability, almost that's incredible numbers.
Yeah. And it took off, and it was great. It's great here. I loved it. I was like, all right, finally, there's you've got no restrictions. Yeah. And I was like, wait, this format's pretty cool, man. And so I'm an IT guy. I sit behind computers. I press buttons. I upload files. So I helped him get it. He would record. I'd help him get it up on iTunes.
Yeah.
And it was pretty awesome. A couple years later, he's like, hey man, I'm going to start a whole network. Like the SModCast podcast network. I was like, yeah, that sounds cool. It's like, I want you to start a podcast.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what? It's like, yeah, I need other shows that aren't just mine. Like I have 5 shows. It's all me.
Right.
We need other content, other viewpoints, other subject matters. We have the freedom to do that. I want you to start podcasting. And I'm like, what? And in my head, I was like, that's crazy. I had no desire to jump behind the microphone.
Yeah.
I was that shy kid in high school that didn't say anything. I was sat in the back. I had my 2 nerd friends.
Right.
Playing D&D in the basement.
Right.
I'm not, and I wasn't the outgoing guy. I'm like, you're famous. You've been in front of a camera. You've been behind a camera. You're in the public eye. You got to do PR and press. I don't do that. I got into this so I could sit behind a computer in a dark room and
not talk to anybody.
Yeah, move pixels around and help guys like you get your show up.
Yeah.
And he's like, you don't get it, man. This is awesome. this is the future. This is for everybody. Like you can do this. I'm like, don't. In my head, maybe I need a little broadcast training.
Yeah.
Yeah, many things just holding me back, but I was like, I didn't do this. I just didn't. I don't create my own shows. Didn't get in front of a camera, and I was just like, all right, I got two questions. One, what would I do a podcast about?
Yeah.
And two, like, who's gonna listen to me? Nobody knows.
Which every
me.
podcaster asks themselves at some point. Yeah, when they first get started.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was like, who's gonna listen to me? The only thing people know me of maybe is the guy who works for you. You know,
Right. Oh yeah, that guy.
Yeah, that guy. Oh, Ming. Yeah. Like, oh, you work for Kevin Smith. Like, that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he's like, no, you can start a podcast on anything. And I'm like, anything? He's like, yeah. What? He put it to me like this. He was like, what could you talk about for 45 minutes to an hour without even preparing for it? What do you know that deeply about? What do you love that much that you could just rattle off for an hour? And I'm like, I don't know. Comics, definitely. Star Wars. I love Star Wars.
Yeah.
And food. I love food. And he's like, that's a podcast. I'm like, really? That counts?
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, totally. I'm like, well, who would listen to that? That sounds like a really weird mix of things.
Yeah.
He's like, well, you're going to get all the people who love comics, Star Wars, and food, or the people who love comics, Star Wars, or food.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
Exactly.
And I was like, oh, man, all right. So one day we set up some gear in the back of Jay and Silent Bob's Secret Stashes comic book shop down the street here in Red Bank.
Yeah, Red Bank, right.
Yeah, set up on a beat-up poker table that we had back there. I had all the gear because he would come to town and record sometimes, so I had a rudimentary knowledge of how to run a board, how to hook up microphones, how to record something so we didn't lose the audio. And I didn't want to do it by myself, so I asked my coworker and now comic book man co-star Mike Zapcic if he would jump in. He's obviously into comics.
Right.
He was the assistant manager of the store. Loves Star Wars and used to be a chef, so he knew food as well.
Perfect.
Yeah, and
Perfect
we were
combo.
friends for years, so
Yeah.
we knew we would interact with each other. And yeah, I remember we set it all up, and I remember I was like, Kevin, man, like how long do you want this thing to be? Like, I just wanted to get it over with. And he was like, can you do 45 minutes? Like an hour would be great. And it sounded like a long time to me. I was like, that's a long time, but okay, I'll give it a shot. Made a loose list of things I wanted to talk about, and hit recorder. We were off and running. So there was no clock. We don't have like a clock in the store. It's kind of like a casino.
Yeah.
And I remember we
just lose track of time.
Yeah. We were going. We were having so much fun, and then I was like, well, see you later. I guess that's our first show. Thanks for listening. Hit stop. And I checked the clock. 2 hours had gone by.
Wow.
Yeah, and maybe you've been there where you lose a track of time doing this.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, you get into awesome conversations, and then time just melts. And I was like, wow, that was fun. I felt like we did pretty good, and we definitely got the hour he wanted in.
Right.
And I remember I went back and I listened to it, and I was like, hey, this is not bad. Like if this was a show on a radio station.
Yeah.
It would have counted.
Right.
We weren't like,
dead air and,
Yeah, didn't talk over each other. And more importantly, though, we sounded very knowledgeable about what we were talking about. And it sounded real. And I remember I was like, Mike, I listened to it. It was pretty good. We did all right. I was like, how did that happen? And he's like, well, you're talking about the things that you love.
Yeah.
When you talk about things that you love, you're pretty much an expert. Like Star Wars. I've probably seen it more times than George Lucas has at this point. Like, he made it. He doesn't need to see it. Like,
right. He knows what's going on.
Yeah, he doesn't need to see it 8 times every year.
Yeah.
He doesn't need to see it 1 time a year. Yeah, he was there. He made it. And, I was like, wow, it was cool. So, yeah, we put it up and got a little help promotion from Kevin. But, by and large, people was like, wow, that was pretty good. Like, when's the next one?
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, when is the next one? So we just started recording weekly. And, yeah, it became really addicting. And it just kind of got carved out that hour that we would carve out every week to record hour and a half was like part of life at some point.
Yeah.
So started that back in 2010 and a little more sporadic now, but we've recorded over 300 episodes. So
of that original show.
Which is called I Sell Comics. You can find it wherever you listen to your podcast.
That's incredible that you guys have been going for that long.
Yeah, it was pretty awesome. And then a few years later, we were blessed. Somehow we wound up on TV on a show called Comic Book Men, which is a show on AMC that came on after The Walking Dead, and that gave us a little publicity, especially podcast wise.
Yeah,
people would see the show and maybe discover the podcast through that. But then we started kind of getting out in the public, and we'd be at like Comic Cons. people would come up to us, and I remember they're like, "Hey, man, we like the show. The show's pretty good. We really love that podcast you guys do, though. That I Sell Comics podcast. Like, we listen every week, and we're like, really? Like, where? And we'd be in like Oregon or I don't know, like Canada or places that weren't New Jersey,
right? Yeah,
outside of this. So it was cool to hear that people around the country were downloading and listening to it. That was cool. Then soon after, we started getting the questions like, "Hey, we love I Sell Comics. We love your podcast. How do we make one? We want to do what you guys do. You guys make it sound like so much fun. You guys are like me and my friends. Like we could do that, right?" I'm like, yeah. All right. And I would give them like a 10, 15-minute lesson, like what gear to buy, like kind of how to upload. But it wasn't, you can't really teach
exactly
in 15 minutes.
Yeah.
So, and we were getting the question constantly at the store, out in public, emails, whatever. And somewhere around 2016, 17, we joked around. I was like, man, we should open up like a classroom or something, like a classroom or a studio. Yeah. Like what if we could take that little 15-minute thing and just expand it like a legit 2-hour class? Right. And then, we could also have a studio where we could record our own stuff. Like we would have our own space. And at 16, 17, it sounded pretty far-fetched. People were barely podcast. I mean, there are podcasts,
but it wasn't.
It wasn't like it is now.
Yeah, the way it is.
Yeah, it just sounded crazy. But one day we decided, like, let's grab some. We found some cheap office space in Red Bank. Had all the gear already, and it was pretty rudimentary. Trucked in. We like poker tables. Yeah. We like podcasting around poker tables. Is
this a poker table that we're sitting at?
No, this is just a regular table. Yeah, I thought about doing that one. It's a little smaller in here, but poker table it's padded, so it kind of dampens sound. You have built-in cup holders.
That's also key.
Yeah, and set up microphones, and we put it out there that we were a podcast studio available for rent, available for classes, available to any podcaster out in this area that needed a space to record. And it was cool. So the podcast studio is called The Shared Universe. The name, the meaning is twofold. One, we're big comic book fans. So in the comics, sometimes you would see like Spider-Man would have to come to New York City and help Superman out. Gotcha. Like they would cross over. Right. Heroes would cross over. Villains would cross over. Companies would cross over. The Avengers would meet the Justice League. Sure. And we always thought that was cool. I was like, whoa, man, this is like a mind-blowing. It was like an event. Yeah. So, yeah. The other meaning is, as you know, podcasting. There's podcasts on everything. Right. The subjects are so diverse, wide, niche, and they all kind of come here and share their stories. So I love share their universes. So that was cool. So, yeah, at first it was kind of slow. We were still in the age of like, what's a podcast? Right. And we would have to explain that. Some of the more people in the area that were a little more progressive that listened to podcasts, that created content, they would find us, or our friends would tell them about us. And I remember, I guess we were about a month in, and our friends were using it, and friends of friends were coming in to check it out. And then there was that one day where we got a message on Facebook. We're like, hey, we're thinking about coming down. Got a couple questions, but could we come in next week? We want to record for 4 hours when we want to do 4 shows at one time. And I'm looking at the message like, well, I don't know these people. Yeah, these are like this is real. These are real clients. Right. It's like, holy crap! Like we can't mess around now. Yeah. So we cleaned everything up and I remember they came in. Two ladies who you're very familiar with. One of our very first clients that we didn't know were Kendra Arnold and Marissa Sweeney from the NJ Veg Fest. Right. And I was like, "What's your podcast about?" I was like, "Well, we're running a bunch of vegan food festivals. We want to bring the vendors in one at a time and interview them, and at the same time promote the festival." I'm like, "What a great idea!" Yeah, it was awesome. And they came in, as you know, Kendra and Marissa are amazing. Right. And they took to this like nothing. It was like they were born for this. Yeah, I mean, I know Marissa pretty well, and obviously she was a guest of the show for people that have listened to the show. Yeah, and she's definitely like a natural, just kind of like talking, telling stories, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, and they whipped out that 4 hours like it was nothing. Yeah, and I just remember at the end they're like, "Wow, that was cool. Can we come back?" Like 100%. Like, dude, you come back current business. Yeah, yeah, it was cool. Yeah, and the thing I learned that day, I was like, okay, this might work as a business, right? As a weird business idea that no one's really doing that is very new and maybe a little bit ahead of its time. And I remember when we opened, and we're like, all right, well, what happens if no one uses this? And we started thinking, and we were like, well, at least we have a place where we can record.
Exactly.
Yeah. Like, at the very least. Yeah. But the nice side effect I didn't think about, talking to Kendra and Marissa, they're very, they're doing something very out of the box, something that's not been done, kind of weird.
Right.
And
kind of fits what you said, like this space almost is.
Yeah. It'll either work or it doesn't. And I was like, wow, they were really cool. Like I made, and we're friends now. I was like, wow, it's just someone really cool just walked through the door.
Right.
I didn't realize that, I was going to be meeting all these cool people in the area and, become friends with them, support them, exchange ideas, learn from them. Yeah. And, that was a nice welcome side effect.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I love that we spent that whole time.
Yeah. And we got to meet because, you're up north. We may have not have crossed paths if not for podcasting.
Yeah, probably never. And that's like the coolest thing. And I think that you, like you said, you would agree, like the people that I've, especially doing this show, the people that I've had a chance to meet, like sit down with in person, like there's some people that I have no business knowing.
Yeah.
Or like no business being friends with and like all that kind of stuff because I'm an insurance salesman from New Jersey. Like that's what I do full time. And, doing stuff like this has opened so many doors and given me so many cool experiences like that, like I say it and I don't say it lightly, like podcasting essentially had changed my life.
Oh, yeah, you and me both. Yeah,
3 years
absolutely.
ago. Yeah. So I'm all about that. But I do want to learn a little bit more about you. Now that I think if I'm reading that clock right, I think we're like 15 minutes in already, but this is great.
Yeah.
So are you originally from Jersey?
No. So I grew up in Michigan.
Okay.
University of Michigan graduate. I came here because I real quick, I saw the movie Clerks, Kevin Smith's movie Clerks. Yep. I made a fan website one day when I was in college and he saw it. He was like, whoa, that's awesome. Can you make more of these? I think this website thing is going to take off. Like websites weren't really big back in the 90s, mid 90s. And I was like, yeah. And it started doing stuff on the side for him, building websites, helping him establish like a community on the internet before there was like real social media. And then he ended up hiring me full time. So I moved here in 2002.
Okay.
So 23 years. Yeah, just hit my 23 years.
Yeah.
And I love it here.
Yeah.
I love it here.
It's a great place.
Yeah.
And I literally do a whole show about it. So,
yeah.
That's why how much I love it for sure.
Yeah. But to be honest, like the pizza's so good. Like I can't leave. I'm not going to leave. The pizza's too good here.
Well, you know what? I made the joke a couple times recently. Like now that I do this show, I literally can't leave New Jersey.
Yeah,
like,
literally.
I'm here, I have to be here for life.
Yeah,
or at least as long as I'm doing the show. So then on the like you talk about like Star Wars and all these different fandoms that you're into, comics, all that kind of stuff. Was that something that you were always into?
Yeah. When I was like really little, I was aware of Spider-Man, the major superheroes. But when I was 6, some kid in first grade gave me a copy of the Avengers. And I got way into it. Then I was like, "Whoa, who's this dude with the shield? And who's doing this iron, the iron suit? And who's this funny talking guy with the hammer and the wings on his head?" I learned about like a superhero team reading the Avengers, and it took off from there. And I think I discovered at a very early age that comics are cool, and we're kids, so toy collectors.
Yeah,
I was a big G.I. Joe kid, but me and the kids in the neighborhood, huge toy collectors. And now, fast forward 30, 40 years, vintage toys are huge. New toys are like toys in general, just huge. So and I never let go of that love, luckily.
Right? Is it? Does it? I mean, I think it's awesome. But is it ever? Do you ever like stop and like think about like the stuff that you're doing now is essentially like what young Ming like was all about, like his love, has kind of carried through like this whole time.
Yeah, which is crazy. I guess back then, we're talking, late 70s, 80s, and 90s. This stuff wasn't cool. There were no Marvel movies.
Right.
If people found out you read comics, they looked down on you.
Yeah.
And there weren't really a lot of toy collectors out there too. So everyone, I guess everyone was just so serious back then.
Yeah, it sounds like a very serious, boring, honestly.
Yeah, but I was growing up, and people are like, well, what do you want to do? What kind of job do you want? When are you going to college for?
Yeah.
And I hate that. I hated that question. So I frankly,
when are you going to grow up, Ming? Like, Jesus.
Exactly. I didn't know. And finally, just to shut them up, I was like, every time it's like, well, what do you want to do with your life? I was like, you know what I want to do? Or read comics, play video games, and love pop culture. And of course, they scoffed at me. They're like, well, no one's ever going to pay you to do that, which we know now. Loving pop culture kind of paid off for me in a way. playing video games. If anybody's heard of the platform called Twitch, the $4 billion platform where kids are in their bedrooms making millions of dollars streaming games, playing or competing in esports.
Right.
That's a $1 billion industry now. So. I'm glad I didn't listen to them.
Yeah, I'm glad you didn't either, because we never would have had a chance to do this.
Yeah, for sure.
This space wouldn't even exist.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay, so you moved to Jersey, and then like what was kind of your initial like the stuff that you were doing for Kevin at the beginning? Was that just like building the websites and kind of stuff?
Websites fairly new in the mid 90s, and then they kind of blew up, and then there's like the .com thing in the 2000s. I moved here in 2002 when it got. It became an industry. People would pay you, like, give you a salary job to build websites. But what Kevin did was unique. He wanted to establish an online fandom, and now it's not a big deal. You create a Facebook page, and then people join it. But there was nothing like that back then. There was imagine no Twitter, no Twitch, no Instagram, not a very early version of YouTube maybe. Right. But there was no way to kind of gather fans or of anything into one specific group. And one thing Kevin wanted on the website I built him was he was like, "Hey, is there any way I can talk to my fans online?"
Yeah. It's crazy. Like, I didn't realize how just like all the stuff that you're telling me so far, like, how progressive he was, like, and all the foresight, like kind of thinking like outside the box in that time and try to leverage that into stuff down the road. Yeah.
Like he's very progressive for a guy. He's very self-deprecating. He's like, "Oh, film this. I'm not doing anything special. Anyone can do this." And I'm like, "Dude, give yourself some credit."
Yeah, seriously.
But yeah, he wanted to establish some kind of online community, and we ended up building. It was just a very simple message board. People would post a question. And when he was free, he would go and answer the questions. And sometimes he would do it for hours, just sit there and answer every question that people had posted in the last 24 hours or last week. And for the fans, it was cool. Yeah. Because nobody was doing that. No one in the Hollywood system, no famous people were interacting with their fans online. Like, no one was really doing that in like such a public manner. And I think it helped his fandom a lot. Because he was so early on doing that, and that it was cool. He expanded that into real life gatherings as well. Yeah. So there's a small indie movie theater here, so we would do all day Kevin Smith movie film festivals from like dusk till dawn. After every movie, he would fly in some of the stars from the movie. They would do a Q&A after. It was like a Sundance or South by Southwest, but just for Kevin Smith. Right. But it was cool. Like Jason Lee would come down. I think Affleck would come down. Any of the stars of Clerks would come down. And it was a really cool weekend where you just get photos with them. This was pre-smartphone, I think. So people were actually they had film cameras and maybe rudimentary digital cameras.
Like something like those, just like disposable, old school disposable cameras too. Maybe with like the slide.
Yeah, with thing. Yeah. But it was pretty cool. It was kind of the beginning. Now they have all kinds of meetups and stuff, but they didn't really do that back then. Right. So he was a pioneer for sure.
Yeah. Minuteman Press Westfield is a full-service printing, mailing, and marketing design firm. They specialize in apparel like the shirt I wore to Podfest 2023, which they screen printed specifically for me. To reach Minuteman Press Westfield for any of your printing needs, call 908-857-4644 or email westfield@minutemanpress.com. The Mayo Performing Arts Center is the heart of arts and entertainment in Morristown, New Jersey. MPAC presents over 200 events annually and is home to an innovative children's arts education program. To see MPAC's upcoming schedule of world-class concerts, stand-up comedy, family shows, and more, head to mayoarts.org or just click the link in our show notes. Bored of going to the same park? Want to try a new local adventure? Well, then check out njspots.com, your home for finding a new spot to discover right here in New Jersey. With dozens of maps to check out, local hiking spots, family-friendly places, and seasonal suggestions, NJ Spots is waiting for you to find somewhere new to explore. That's njspots.com. So, because we kind of told this story already, so I'm not going to have you rehash it. Sure. But going forward with the comic book men stuff, was the podcast kind of what kind of progressed that into a TV show? Yeah,
very much so. Okay. Which is funny. So, because it just, in the beginning, podcasting was just kind of, something you and your friends did, got it out there, and that was it. Yeah. And there was really no, it didn't really go farther than that, but it was cool. You would have your own show, at least, and your own podcast, and podcasting was cool. But kind of the catalyst for the TV show was The Walking Dead, the TV show The Walking Dead, which is based on a comic book.
I just finished that like the other couple weeks ago. I remember we used to watch that in college.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Sunday we would watch Walking Dead.
I remember. I was like, all right, Sunday 9 o'clock, don't bother me. I'm turning my phone off. We're watching
Sunday
Walking Dead. Come on over, like if you want to. Yeah, it was like an event every Sunday, and but AMC, the TV channel that aired Walking Dead, was like, whoa, this comic book stuff looks like it's pretty cool. We wanna capitalize on this. How do we capitalize on this? And they were kicking around ideas like, hey, we should do a TV show about comic books or pop culture. But they didn't really have an idea of what they wanted to do. So they called Kevin, like, hey, so Walking Dead's taking off. We think comics on TV and our network would, we want something to kind of be like a companion to that.
Sure.
What would you do? And he was like, well, you know that TV show Pawn Stars? Why don't you just take that and put it in a comic book shop? And instead of whatever artifacts that Rick and the gang do on Pawn Stars and, gold bricks or whatever.
Fake memorabilia.
Yeah, fake memorabilia. Why don't you concentrate on like vintage toys and comics? Like you said, comics are big.
Yeah.
He was kind of like, hey, what if someone brought in like a Walking Dead #1? Like it's pretty valuable right now. And they negotiated over it. But at the same time, you would get a history of why the book exists and what it's about, how it related to the TV show. And immediately they were like, all right, congratulations, you just created a TV show. And
great call.
That was kind of the bones of it. And as the idea progressed, they're like, okay, well, what do we need for this to happen? They're like, all right, well, we need a comic book shop. And Ken was like, I have a shop. Oh, they're like, great. Awesome. And they're like, well, we need cast members. We need, a bunch of guys to throw in there, kind of like the Pawn Stars guys. And he's like, well, I got 4 guys who work. Well, I got 3 guys who work there and one that doesn't work there, but he comes in all the time to bust the other 3 guys' balls. And they're like,
perfect.
Yeah, they're right. So they actually shot a little pilot episode. They came in, and I remember when Kevin told us, he was like, hey, they're thinking about doing a TV show shot in the store. And I was like, cool, great. That's awesome. Store's awesome. You get to promote the store. You'll be awesome, obviously. He's like, no. They don't really, I mean, I'll be on it, but they don't, the meat of the story is going to be you and the other 3 guys who work in the store. And I was like, what? And Kevin, as a lot of people know now, he smokes a lot of weed.
Okay.
So I just thought he was on some really awesome strain.
What do you got, man?
Yeah. Like what kind of kush are you on? Because because it really did come out of left field. As I'm I was like, dude, I'm your webmaster, your IT guy.
Right.
The other guys
got me doing these podcasts now, and I don't even want to be, on the mic and all that.
Yeah, you made me do that.
Now I'm in front of a camera like that.
Yeah, and the other guys, one doesn't even work, and the other 2 guys work in a comic book shop.
Yeah.
We're not actors. We've had no training. We don't. We don't do this. He's like, no. Stay tuned. This might actually happen.
Yeah.
And I remember, they brought in a crew. We shot like a little pilot episode, and it was cool. In the pilot episode, they had this rudimentary idea to kind of break it up, that it would cut to Kevin and us podcasting.
Okay.
To kind of describe what was happening off camera. And that was kind of the bones of the show. And and then he was like, hey, so they set the pilot, they're going to pick it up. They're going to do 6 episodes. And I'm like,
oh,
what?
Shit.
I was like, this is real now. And I actually did get a little scared too. I was like, what if, I didn't want to screw it up.
Right.
And I was like, I'm not, and the joke going around was people were like, well, you're going to be Snooki. You're going to be Snooki. That's the other show in the area that took off.
Yeah.
With a bunch of characters, and now they're kind of larger than life.
Yeah.
And we'd always joke around, and Kevin's like, you're gonna be Snooki. I was like, we don't want to be Snooki.
Right.
Snooki.
People like in your personal life all the time.
Yeah.
Like knowing every move you make.
Yeah. And I was like, I might have to get drunk and punch people. And I saw that
fall asleep
show,
on
man.
the beach.
Yeah. Right. And fight. Like they're like, no. It's it's not gonna be like that at all. Like we're gonna keep it kind of to the comic book shop.
Right.
And lo and behold, it just kind of slowly started happening. However, to answer your question, before it kind of got to that point, the TV network was like, hey, so we've seen the guys interact on camera. They're pretty funny, but are they really like that? Were they maybe just doing it just for the camera? Can they do it for longer periods of time? Is this a true interaction? And Cameron was like, you know what? Listen to their podcasts. Here are the links to all their podcasts. take a listen. I think you're gonna get a real feeling of how these guys interact.
Yeah.
And they did. So I think the podcast definitely cemented their confidence in that,
because you're like real guys.
Yeah. And if you listen to the podcast, it's they'll call me down and start busting my balls. We'll start making fun of each other, come up with these far-fetched scenarios. And if you watch a TV show, it's the same thing.
Yeah,
less cursing. It's basic cable, so yeah.
Of course, you gotta clean it up a little bit.
Yeah, I had to tone it down just a little bit.
Touch.
But the podcasting, I think, really to the executives who were maybe a little doubtful and wanted to know our true personalities. Yeah, they definitely listened.
Yeah.
And then if you watch the show, it's streaming free now on YouTube. You just search Comic Book Men. If you watch it, we do the Pawn Stars. Hey, I'll give you $1,000. No, this is worth $10. This is ripped here.
Yeah.
Like, what's the line? Like, it's that $30. That's the best I can do. I think that's the line, right?
Yeah.
We do that, but it's kind of brilliant. In between all that, since it's just us, Kevin lives in California, so he would only come back to be like, hey guys, what sold in the store this week? Like, tell me about it.
Check in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for those scenes, he came up with a really great idea. He was like, hey, so most reality shows, if you watch, they'll do a scene, then they'll cut to like maybe the guy in the parking lot. They call it a talking head.
Yep. Right.
Like, oh man, so I tried to go in and sell this for $5,000. They wouldn't give it to me. No sale. Sorry. Guess I'm gonna go home now. And you see, he was like, that's boring. It's like one guy talking straight to a camera.
Yeah.
He's like, what if instead of that we did it as a podcast? That it would look like we were podcasting, and that I was asking you guys what happened, and you would relay it to me, but we'd be podcasting, like it would as if we could release this story in a future podcast,
right?
And
did those eventually become actual episodes, or was that just kind of
no, it was just for the show. Okay. Although afterwards we were like, whoa, people are going to expect an actual podcast, so we actually did do a separate podcast recapping the episode.
Gotcha.
Yeah. But I'm really proud of that, how we did that, because the show aired in February 2012. If you look back from that point forward, I don't think you see podcasting anywhere in a movie, in a TV show.
No,
I'm pretty sure it wasn't. I'm pretty sure we're the first like major media format to showcase podcasting. So it's kind of a point of pride for us.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. And then how long did Comic Book Men run for?
We got 7 seasons, 96 fun-filled episodes.
Wow.
So it premiered February 2012.
Yeah.
And 7 seasons. It went to like April 2018.
And the basically like the show pretty much like the format of it, I'm sure evolved like slightly over time, but
not really. I mean the basic basic, someone would bring something in or to sell, or they would want to buy something from the store. Every so often we would get out of the store and get on some kind of wacky adventure. We would go to, like a memorabilia auction.
Yeah.
Or we would go to like Funko and buy pop figures, or get our own pop figure created.
That's
cool. Or something cool. Something cool like that. Yeah. Or we would go to some guy's collection that wasn't at the store, and it'd be like mind blowing. So yeah, it was a cool, very easy format.
Yeah.
And the other major component is, as we got bigger, started getting a lot of cool guest stars to come in.
Yeah.
The biggest was probably Stan Lee.
Wow.
Yeah, he came in twice.
The GOAT. Yeah.
Yeah, the GOAT. But Ralph Macchio came in. Adam West from the '66 Batman came in. Method Man's a big comic book fan. Method Man came in.
Wow.
So yeah, we got a lot of really cool people.
Yeah. I was gonna save this question for later, but we could ask about it now. But so I just think it's such a cool trajectory of life. Right, because like you grow up and you're doing the stuff that you just love as a kid, and then now fast forward to now, and you're doing all the things like that. You're now making money from it.
Yeah.
But then like having all these different experiences that, like we were saying before, otherwise you would not have had.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I guess Stan Lee might be one of the ones that you just mentioned, but like those pinch me moments.
Right. Oh yeah.
Is this real?
We had a lot of them.
Yeah. Like it was like a couple that like stand out. Like holy shit. Like,
yeah, for sure. Yeah. First of all, most of the things, a lot of things we love, like the industry might not even exist yet. So it's So, it's a weird path. I did have a salary job. I had I had to wear a suit and tie at one point. I had to do all that, and it wasn't really that fun. But you take sacrifices, especially early on in your life or your career, where maybe you do that. But I always tell kids, like, even if you're kind of stuck in a job you don't want to do and you have a passion, And I think Gary Vee says this as well. The great Gary Vaynerchuk, Jersey native.
That's right.
He's like, hey, well, you got, work's just 8 hours. You got 16 other hours. Take that to do what you really love and work at it till maybe it does become a bigger thing or create it yourself.
Yeah.
And so it kind of happened that way. But what was your question again?
The pinch me moments.
Oh, yeah. Stan Lee, definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, even just meeting Kevin.
Right.
I was in Michigan at the time when I built that fan site. So he literally tracked me down, emailed me, told me to call him the next day. And I thought it was a fake email.
Yeah,
but the number had a 908 area code. I was like, that's Jersey.
Yeah.
This might be real.
Right.
So, that was one of the biggest ones. Meeting Stan Lee for sure. Like seeing Ben Affleck, Oscar winners in person, Ben Affleck and Matt Damon. George Carlin was here to film Jersey Girl many years ago.
Yep.
And just even seeing him in person, but getting to meet him briefly was pretty big.
Yeah.
Kevin's thrown me in a couple of his movies, just brief roles.
You just got back from doing something, right?
Yeah, I did. Yeah. I think actually the biggest recent pinch me moment was Clerks 3 just came out, the third in the series.
Yep.
And he was like, "Hey, I want you guys can you guys come down for a day? I have a scene for you guys to be in." And Kevin doesn't really tell you a lot. He just tells you where and when to show up. And we show up. And I'm like, all right, what are we doing today? He's like, well, here's where you're going to be wearing. And they handed me a hockey jersey. And they're like, hey, you're going to go on the roof of the Quick Stop from Clerks. You're going to play hockey with Randall and Dante from Clerks. And like, holy crap, man. Yeah. That's awesome. 28 years ago, I'm watching a movie where my favorite scene is the two main characters playing hockey on the roof of a convenience store.
Yeah.
20 some odd years later,
now you're a part
you're
of it.
joining them and trash talking them and busting their balls. And you're in the third iteration of that movie that you love so much.
Right.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy. Yeah. That's probably the biggest pinch me moment
That's so
of
cool.
recent.
I love that. And again, and then that's just being like passionate about something.
Yeah.
Like getting in front of people that you want to be in front of.
Yeah.
Doing things like we're doing right now. So I think that's so cool.
For sure. And then kind of related to that, Kevin just bought a movie theater in the area.
Okay.
Over in Atlantic Highlands.
Got it.
Where he does all his own programming and he holds all his events there now, which is cool because he's in Jersey more now, which I love.
Yeah.
But he threw a film festival there, and I had met a filmmaker there that was at the festival. We hung out, drank some beers, networked, and he's like, "Hey man, I'm shooting a movie in Albuquerque, New Mexico in a couple months. I have this small role as an Asian mob boss. Would you be interested?" I'm like, "Holy crap, man! Yeah, absolutely. Like kind of a dream role, really. Like, watching so many kung fu movies, just mob movies in general, Asian mob movies, whatever." And I literally just got back from my shot 2 days ago, actually. And,
that's awesome.
It was awesome, but it was it was pretty cool. But it wasn't something I was looking for. It just kind of happens. So,
yeah, right. And sometimes that's the best kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But, all right. So you do the show. You got all these things going on with like the studio and doing all that kind of stuff. What are some other things that you're doing? Because every time I look at your Instagram, which is a great Instagram, because you're always someplace. Like the fact that you're here in Jersey right now,
is
almost
pretty
surprising
crazy
to me. Because every time I look, you're like, and you were just in Albuquerque, like you said, or you're in California or Florida or wherever. Like you're always at someplace. Like what are you doing?
Yeah, so I have a problem sitting still.
Yeah,
I think we both do, and which is not a bad thing.
Right.
It can be tiring at some points.
True.
But the studio's been taking up a lot of my time. However, I've hired people, so I'm able to get out for small periods of time. I think the big thing, other than the podcast studio, is I go to a lot of Comic-Cons. So one of the probably the greatest side effect of having a TV show based in the world of pop culture is now you get to enter the world of the Comic-Con, which is huge right now.
Right.
There's Comic-Con going around on somewhere in the world like every weekend. Sometimes 5, sometimes up to like 10.
Wow.
Like they're everywhere in the world. And since we had a show about comic books and pop culture, I get invited out now. So a lot of my weekends, it's like, hey, I'm going to Planet Comic-Con in Kansas City. I'm going to New York Comic-Con, San Diego Comic-Con. Or, there might be a small Comic-Con in, like Rhode Island or Tennessee or somewhere. Yeah. And for me, I love to travel. And so to me, it's like, it's kind of one of the best ways to see the world is to go to a Comic-Con, which I love going to, but you have all the other time in between the con where you can go and explore.
Right.
And so I do that. That's the other part of my world. And that's why you see where it looks like I'm never home.
Yeah.
I'm usually in some city who's throwing a comic book convention, who's invited me out.
Right.
So,
like when I reached out, I was like, I'm gonna have to try to find like this little window, and you're like, oh, I'm gonna be home actually like most of February. And I was like, oh shit. Yeah.
But it's gonna be a pretty crazy year. So
I'm sure.
Yeah. And then you get random stuff like, hey, I want to put you in my movie, or hey, we're throwing a big film festival. Can you come podcast with us down there?
Yeah.
Or just a lot of stuff. So yeah.
No, I love that. And so kind of going back to this studio. So how many? Because every time I look on the Shared Universe Instagram page too, because obviously Instagram is big for me.
Yeah.
There's always like other shows rolling through here.
Yeah.
I would imagine consistent shows that kind of help produce and do all that kind of stuff. So like how many shows are you kind of running out of here right now?
So we kind of gauge how busy how many like hours of content we've recorded.
Right.
Some shows are 1 hour, some are hour and a half, some go 2 hours, some go on even longer. And so we're consistently recording about 40 hours of content a week.
Wow.
And our hours aren't even really set. We're like, listen, when you can get down here, we'll be down here for you. So it's a kind of a 24/7 operation. And some days are around 40. Some are way more. Sometimes we get out of the studio and go record at remote locations. But never would I have dreamed that there'd be that much that we would record.
Right.
And, as we grow, as the word of mouth gets around, it just keeps getting bigger. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And then, kind of even looking into the future too, with like all the stuff that you've done so far, are there, and obviously there's things that pop up, here and there, and you said you're doing what you love. Are there things that you're maybe like working on right now that you're like, this is going to be kind of cool? You don't have to share anything if it's like super tough.
I always have crazy ideas.
Yeah.
The goal for this place is to, the thing I noticed, we had one and it was awesome.
Yeah.
But then I started noticing, I was like, if we built more, it would be easier for people, because we would have people traveling down from Morristown, like Mercer, and that's an hour away.
Yeah.
It's a lot. So, we kind of noticed that people will come to whichever location is closest to them. It's a kind of a convenience.
Yeah.
And I was like, so the only way to reach to more people is to build more studios. So, eventually, we'll have one of these in every major city.
Love that.
But we'll start with Jersey first.
Yeah. Take it over.
Yeah. So we're working on getting more of these out there. Like I would love to be in Morristown. I think Morristown would be perfect for a podcast studio.
Let me know.
And for sure. And I know it's a strong community.
Yeah.
But I would love, at the heart of it is podcasting. This medium. And I remember when we started, we didn't know any other podcasters in the area. So the other component of having the studio is to meet other podcasters.
Yeah.
And I've been trying to get something off around like a monthly podcaster meetup, so like a bar or something, maybe a performance space where we could actually, maybe showcase a podcast for every meetup, give them some time to do like a live show maybe.
Right.
I would love to do a podcast festival.
That'd be cool.
I know there have been some that tried to start and kind of just did it for 1 year. I think if we simplified it a little more, I think that could definitely be a thing. Podcast convention would be cool.
Yep.
Where you have live podcasting panels and shows. Both will have like Zoom and Shure microphones and Audio Technica and come out and maybe have booths.
Right. I had a whole like last year. Last year was my first time going to Podfest.
Yeah.
And then I went back this year and I spoke about how to do what I do for the show. And like they've this next year I think will be their 10th doing this, and they get like 1,500 people to come out to it. And,
it's awesome. And
last year when I came out of it, I was like, I'm gonna run one.
Yeah.
I started looking at space, and like Marissa was helping me a little bit, and I was like, it's a lot to do by myself.
I'm all in on that. I think we could take something like that, make it more regional, more and start a little smaller and
Because you're right, like being around people that do what we do, like on the mic and like how they do it. Like they may like my show is way different than your show, which is different than another person's show.
Yeah, they're all different.
Yeah, but it's just so cool how like you just learn so much from people that are, and you just start like vibrating. You're like, oh my God, that's a great idea. I could use that in this way for my own show, or like however it works.
Yeah, and honestly, my favorite thing though, having the studio is doing what we're doing now, where one podcast will be leaving, other one will be coming in, and they start talking. Like, oh man, what's your show about? It's like, oh, I do a show on cartoons and craft beer. What's your show about? Oh, I do it on paranormal. And the cartoon guy was like, wait, I like paranormal stuff.
Yeah,
I believe that there are ghosts. And the other guy's, really, you want to be on? Come be on my show.
Yeah.
So there'd be that audience, that podcast crossover.
Right.
Kind of like like a team up. And Yeah, that nothing makes me happier than seeing that. So I mean, that's really at the heart of it. That's what we want to do here.
100%.
Yeah.
I love it. So I know I said we were going to take a break at one point during this episode, and we obviously haven't, which is totally cool because I didn't want to stop what we were just talking about. But before we kind of finish up, I do want to get some, like, you're a Jersey transplant.
Yes.
And you've been here, you said, for 23 years.
Yes.
What are some of your favorite things to go do, places to go, like all that kind of stuff?
Oh, man,
like
great question.
Your diehards that you're just like, I love it here.
Great question. I hang out mostly in Asbury Park, so I'll go to Porter's, a favorite by day.
Okay,
maybe not so much by night. I'm
right,
just
it's
too
a
old
club
for
at night.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, although if I'm gonna go chill out somewhere, Watermark in Asbury is cool.
Yep.
Laylo is a speakeasy in Asbury, which I really love. There are a bunch of dive bars. The Nip and Tuck in Long Branch is definitely a place we hang out at a lot. We take a lot of podcasters over after this. We'll go over there. But one of my other favorites is the Whitechapel Projects.
I keep seeing that.
Oh, we'll get you over there.
Yeah, it looks so cool.
Whitechapel Projects is a really great restaurant. They also have a small brewery in the back. They have a large patio outside, and they also have a performance space.
Yeah,
and
it's like in a courtyard almost, right?
Yeah, I have a courtyard, and then there's an indoor area as well.
Right, yeah,
and it's cool, like exposed brick.
Yeah,
and there's a stage. So currently there's an art gallery going on right now. But we've done a couple live podcasts there. But that's somewhere I'm thinking like we could do a small festival.
Yeah.
Which is cool. Is they have a liquor license, so
right, that always helps.
You could drink beer and watch a podcast. You could drink beer and podcast. Yeah,
Those are two of my favorite things, honestly.
It's pretty cool. So I see that. I'm talking to Marilyn Schlossbach, who is the proprietor over there, and I'd love to see it as a major kind of podcasting hub over there. Yeah, no, that'd be really cool. And like I said, I keep looking at that place and seeing it. I'm like, man, it looks so cool. I just haven't gotten there because it's I live in Morristown. Like, and but I am also in Asbury Park like all the time. I was just there Saturday. I'm going to be there next week. I saw that. You podcast with one of my favorite people in the entire world, Juicy Jen from the Parlor Gallery and the Wooden Walls Project.
Yeah. We went to. She just did a whole a party on Saturday night for this new exhibit that she has in the gallery. Like everything was made of cardboard. Which was kind of cool.
She's great, and she's always been a huge encourager of what I do. And always kind of helps me out.
You said Juicy Jen.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I love that nickname. I didn't know that. I wish I knew that before. She's more commonly known as Juicy Jen. So there's a whole story behind that. But I'm a big craft beer fan. So I go to the craft breweries in the area. The one I have to shout out is Ross Brewing, which is opening their main brewery in March, but they've been distributing for years. Awesome.
Also a sponsor here at Shared Universe.
There you go. Nice.
But Kane, Carton, Source Brewing.
Yep. I like Source a lot.
Source is great.
Yeah.
Source is amazing.
Yeah. I mean, like I'm lucky. So like up in Morristown, we have Glenbrook.
Yep.
So it's like a 10-minute walk from my apartment. So just like kind of stroll on down and that's it.
Yeah.
Then walk home. So I get a lot of editing done actually at Glenbrook.
Yeah, that's great.
So it's been great.
Yeah.
But this was fantastic. I really appreciate you having me come in the space. So
you're welcome here anytime.
Thank you.
You need to record content here.
I appreciate
It'll always be open for you.
Awesome. Because I do need studio space because sometimes people don't have space.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love what you're doing.
Thank you.
You make podcasting, creating content, encouraging small businesses, and getting stories. That's why we do this. We want stories. We love telling stories. We love listening to stories. We love documenting stories, and that's what this is all about.
100%. Yeah, I could not agree more. So before we wrap, can you hit the people with any places that they can go to learn more about you, a shared universe, all that kind of stuff?
Absolutely. We're at ashareduniverse.com, and all our booking's done online. So if you head on there, there's a big red button that says book your podcast here. And you can rent the space by the hour. You get an engineer. Basically, if you want to start a podcast, you just come up with your idea. Grab a co-host if you want one. Book guests. Create it however you want to. If you love sports, you love beer, you have a business. Even if you don't want to do a dedicated weekly show, maybe you have an event you want to promote. This is the best way to do it. Yeah, for sure. Right. So ashareduniverse.com, ashareduniverse on all social media. And phone number, text me, email me, DM me, whatever. And even if maybe you're established, if you're looking just for a space to use one time maybe you have a big guest coming in, maybe you don't want them to come to your kitchen where you're recording or wherever. Bring them here. If you need any advice, just email me. It's we're not mercenaries here. I would love to help you if you have a question. It's like, hey, how'd you do that? What have you used this piece of gear? What's this microphone like? Whatever. Definitely hit me up.
For sure. Yeah, I love that. And these are the coolest microphones I've ever recorded with. They just look awesome.
These are good enough for Elvis Presley, good enough for us podcasters.
Yeah, the king. Yeah, for sure. Awesome. All right. Well, Ming, again, thank you so much. I'll make sure that I put all those links and social handles in the show notes for everybody to go click and check it out. So if you are in the area, you want to check it out, you want to do a podcast here, all that kind of stuff, and obviously check out the rest of the stuff that you're doing as well. So those will be in the show notes. So again, Ming, thank you so much.
Thank you, man. And greetings.
Yeah, greetings.
From the Garden State and a shared universe.
100%. And so everyone, thank you for listening. Again, this has been the Greetings from Garden State podcast. I'm Mike Ham. He's Ming Chen. Thank you for listening, and we will catch you next time.